Devin Kenny is an interdisciplinary artist, writer, musician, and independent curator living in Queens, New York. Born on the south side of Chicago, Illinois, he relocated to New York City to begin his studies at the Cooper Union. He has since continued his practice through the defunct Bruce High Quality Foundation University and Trade School, the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture, Madison, Maine, SOMA, Mexico, and Mexico City, the MFAH Core Program in Houston, Texas, and the Whitney Independent Study Program in New York. Doing collaborations with Triple Canopy, Rhizome, Storefront for Art and Architecture, Performer, and various art and music venues in New York, Chicago, Illinois, Los Angeles, and elsewhere, including the Kitchen, Performance Space, Recess, Het Road Bioscoop, Red Cat, MoMA PS1, Freak City, and Performance Space. He received his MFA in 2013 from the New Genres Department at the University of California, Los Angeles. Take it away, Devin.
Great, thanks. Glad to be here. I'm going to be going through some work that I've been producing and some of the ideas that I've been working through in my artistic practice. Do you ever let go? Who ain't ready to love you? You gotta let go of those who just ain't gonna love. You gotta make room. You gotta make room. You can't see in front of you. Do you ever let go? Who ain't ready to love you? You gotta let go That was a kind of demo of a new software that I've been working on with a team called Tohu Wabohu. It's kind of a nonlinear presentation software for showing video and image and sound. And that'll be, yeah, we're in the process with it, but that should be coming out as a freeware in the fall. I also wanted to share this new project, which is an AR application currently called Other Words. Some of the audio that you were hearing was field recordings that I've been producing in Queens, and some music, which is going to be released this summer, beginning this summer, in an album called In Other Words. But this, if you check in the chat, there should be a little link to a video, which will have a demo. In essence, I'll just let the thing play for about, it's like a minute and a half or so. And then I can talk a little bit about it. You can lose me as a friend and not gain me as an enemy. I still wanna see you eat, but you ain't gonna take a seat with me. I'm living in a life of sin, but still I'm missing all our synergy. You can lose me as a friend and not gain me as an enemy. So what you may have seen there's several objects, which I guess trees in this case. And basically, as you interact with these objects, different elements of the sound will change. So it's maybe like flange or reverb or delay or bass boost or bit crusher or different kinds of ways of like modifying the sonic experience. And in essence, there will be, I'll take like a song, but then release the multi-track version of that song. And then you can turn on and off different components of it and kind of do a live remix just by walking around in space and interacting with these 3D objects. You may have noticed that there were these like yellow arrows, and those arrows are in place it kind of creates a walking path. Like it auto generates a walking path depending on your like GPS location, and the length of that walking path is determined by the length of the songs that you are listening to. So I started thinking about this partially during the pandemic, as thinking about different ways of making a music experience less passive, and also ways of like having fun while not interacting with other people physically. It could also be a way that you could share different things, like maybe you could make a remix of it, and then you could be like screen recording your version and then send it to a friend. So they're just different ways of thinking about and working with music. I want to share this video work that I made last summer. That is in the chat. It's a video work called To Maintain, which was a commission from the Storefront for Art and Architecture in downtown Manhattan. And yeah, the theme was maintenance. So yeah, I had just recently come back to New York from Houston. And basically one of the first things I did was work on this video. And it was great because in coming from Houston to New York, I had to quarantine for 2 weeks. So it was a lot of time to like hang out inside of inside of my place to make my living space into a workspace. So yeah, that's kind of what was going on there. But I will play, and it's about 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes, something like that. I grew up listening to younger elders talking stylishly, solemnly, greasy about what they did to maintain self. And I later learned that they were usually talking about illegal substances, ancient processes, ones that people close to me would enjoy, ones that shouldn't be illegal at all. I give you the seed-bearing plants and herbs to use, ones that were only made illegal to prevent the hearse and other tycoons from losing money. Different forms of the decorative noose, and trying to make the moon look like a warning. Tobacco leaves, cacao beans, and gold snatched from the peoples from here, but this plant gets called a weed. By whom? From where? And now where are they? All over? Okay then. Jazz cigarettes dangerously increase the libido of undesirables. The devil's lettuce leads to miscegenation, a primary fear driving birth of a nation, and the organization charged with preventing that action or delivering people to punishment grew from slave patrols. Paddy rollers for niggers, paddy wagons for mix, and I shouldn't use either, but my DNA result says it's chill, probably. HBU. Let me draft up something real quick. Vibe check. Maintenance is taking something you've built up and trying to fight entropy, not letting it do what it does. Resisting nature, plodding on canyons, cutting down laurels, making crowns but not letting that be enough. And there can be joy in fighting the tides, or so we're told. It's like screaming at a wall! Someday it's gonna fall. Humpty Dumpty with nets on the side of the building so they can play catch up with your contract, and other ingenious inventions folks can cook up, telling us we scrambled because we can't look up, or that we need to be violently handled as though we took up arms, though it was just a water bottle thrown at a person in full body armor who's supposed to be for us. Who's supposed to be for us? The constable keeps the royal steeds. They're in his charge. Not all unions are made the same. Not all immunities either. The cop is a worker paid to not assist or address workers' needs. Activist athletes take a knee. Tax-paid terrorists place a knee on a neck and cannot guess what is next. These rhymes are not fun or funny. Burning this one makes some giggle. Roll it up like a noisemaker post-trill. Survival mode is a real state. I wish we could be in thrival mode, or festival mode, then casual archival mode. Chill, reminisce, rest. If we can't get that, we gotta get the next best. I'm told I need to choose between one who called me a super predator because I had a super soaker, and one who paid money to imprison me for jogging in public. Big L, rest in peace, we take an L for abstention. Chill, reminisce, rest. If we can't get that, we gotta get the next best. What the socially dead do attempting self-care is to maintain. What 5-0 does in response is under the premise of maintaining the status quo. As for maintaining, like I said, I grew up with it in the infinitive. All cats are beautiful.
Don't tell a cop a thing. They ain't there to help. Don't matter what you've done, you've nothing to fear. Right from the jump, stay calm and stay silent. Just give address and name and blame your attorney. Number on your arm. Don't consent to search of your person or your mobile device. Say no to the swab, gum, smoke, and water. Narrate what's going on, get names and badge numbers. Forget to step, 'cause you're nervous. Stay safe, be realistic, and be kind to yourself. Just don't tell a cop a thing. They ain't there to help. Don't matter what you've done, you've nothing to fear. At the start, stay calm and stay silent. Just give your address and name and blame your attorney. Plead the fifth, plead the fifth, plead the fifth, plead the fifth. Anything that you say, they will try to use against you. And cops are allowed to lie too. Don't let them intimidate you. Plead the fifth. Just don't tell the police shit.
I got to maintain. It's type simple and plain to maintain. I had a little funk to the brain.
You're trying hard to maintain.
Or maybe it's the words that I can't say, so what's left an untold fact. Shit happens for a reason. You find out who's your true keepers when you're upstate. While on the streets I try to maintain.
My thoughts must be relaxed, be able to maintain. Cause times is changing, life is strange. The glorious days is gone and everybody's doing bad. Yo, mad lives is up for grabs. Yours.
It's yours.
Whose world is this?
I'm trying to maintain, I flip, fill the clip to the tip.
The spirit refuses to conceive a spirit without a body. Oswald de Andrade, author of the Manifesto Antropofago. The redo, the reenactment, and the reperformance in fine art and other forms of cultural production, the zombie and other aspects of Vodun, Hoodoo, Santeria, and a wide variety of other spiritual practices are examples of how pre-existing material can be activated for the purpose of an unforeseen user and community. These practices, in communion with the present activator, can bring forth a distant authorial power, rather than merely questioning it or reasserting its death. What I'm showing here is an image of a collaborative work that I did with Andrea Solstad at Sculpture Center. It's basically a Monte Carlo car parked in a no parking zone directly in front of the museum. And it's covered in multiple layers of dust. Yeah, and we temporarily had a permit for it. But there were some other elements that were going on there as well. And for the majority of the time, it was actually not permitted to be there. And was kind of reflecting on a few different things. One, it being in Long Island City, Queens, which is like the most rapidly, gentrifying neighborhood within New York City, quickly becoming, well, previously it was more of like an industrial area with some residential, and now it's becoming more and more kind of like what you might call like a bedroom community, which is primarily kind of like luxury condos, some of which are directly across from Sculpture Center, which is a building that formerly had been a trolley repair station in years past. So there's a way in which like the histories of the place, which were centered around transportation, are being kind of erased and replaced with other things. Also in that area was a building known as Five Points, which is kind of famous historical site where people from all over the world would come and do graffiti wild styles, different graffiti murals on this like gigantic building for it was for existing for quite a long time actually. Okay, so that brief excerpt was that I ran before that Divergence. That was an excerpt from my graduate school thesis, 2013, Being There Being, when I was at UCLA. Since the time of that writing, I've been goaded by the transition of the internet into a dominant mass media platform inside of commerce. And I've been trying to work through an idea of diasporic Blackness in the wake of the Matha as a network culture, with the syncretism and mixing of various influences seen in music, dance, as well as visual art, as a forerunner to contemporary cultural logics. Brian Eno once said, "There's not enough Africa in computers." Mathematician Ron Eglash, pointing to the robust algorithms of fractal-based African design practices, retorted that there's not enough African history in Brian Eno. My research expands on the intuition that contemporary digital networks are not only a site of Black culture, but are also structured by the histories of various African diasporic practices. For example, some scholars argue that quilting patterns encoded information for runaways on the Underground Railroad, making it an early instance of network aesthetics before telecommunications. The fact that this understanding of the quilt seems to come from a singular scholarly source, Jacqueline L. Tobin spoke with quilter Ozella McDaniel Williams, and that was passed down through oral tradition, and despite that, spread widely through the internet, is a point of interest for me as well. In 2012, I created a series of paintings bouncing off of that. So I'll show some of those. So this is an installation of those paintings. They're all like acrylic and ink on found wood pieces. I was trying to do something that was like thinking about how oftentimes quilts are made from kind of repurposed fabrics or like scrap fabrics. And this is a zoomed in version of one of the paintings. It's called Cook Like a Chef. And this was on panel. And the little shelf is actually from the like bed slats, the like IKEA bed slats. So I just kind of cut those apart and then put some little, angle brackets to like make a little shelf for these different objects there. Open this image of Gee's Bend quilters. They're in Gee's Bend, Alabama. So these are all people that would be, quilting. This is in the, obviously in the 20th century, but using patterns that had been passed down since the, times of slavery. Okay, I believe our vocabularies for describing the complexity of online sociality are inadequate, partially because of an inattention to the long socio-political history of analog network cultures that both informs and subverts cyberculture today. I showed that image of the cultures of Gee's Bend as one such example. I think there are peaks of this visible in Black Twitter and on TikTok, Tumblr, Facebook, and many other places. Digital communities gave new ways for socially developed aesthetics to flourish, as had occurred away from the keyboard in communities before and after it. It's not the visual proximity to geometric abstraction and modernism that I'm interested in, but the notion of building on and switching up traditions, by them, for them. In our hope to understand a rapidly changing cultural landscape, there's a gap. In my research, I'm embarking on an account of ciphering as a social practice and media technique that emerges in the Caribbean and the Americas by Afro-diasporic peoples. Ciphering is originally a term from hip hop referring to MCs rhyming and beatboxing with one another, showcasing new styles, some of which are later recorded. In cryptography, the cipher is an algorithm functioning as a lock or key. Thrust into new social relations, the Black subject learned and created various social codes for survival and produced her own. I reflect on the Black analog networks springing from the Americas to deepen understanding of the material and ideological function of contemporary digital networks. I started off looking at the subcultures that were formative to me as a teen, the four elements of hip hop, street skateboarding, zines, music piracy, and DIY anime and manga fandom, and I've continued on from there. Recently, scholarly work by Legacy Russell, Glitch Feminism, and Andre Brock Jr., Distributed Blackness, has been resonant for me alongside ongoing work of An Duplan, the Center for Afrofuturist Studies, and others. Are online Black cultures such as Black Twitter primarily a response to white supremacy in mass media? What are the other factors? Do they continue analog practices from the past? Arguably, US popular culture and beyond through globalization is founded on an encounter between the white gaze and Blackness, first articulated in minstrel theater. So perhaps popular internet culture builds on this foundational relationship too, an encounter of various philosophies and worldviews, but forged under the crucible of survival. With a better understanding of the psychic space of the internet, the ways it plays out previous scripts and ideologies, and the ways that they are sometimes challenged, who knows what kinds of things are possible in culture, politics, and society. I want to now close on this exhibition that took place at MoMA PS1 called Rootkit's Rootwork, which was in summer 2019, and it's really reflecting on the majority of these kinds of ideas that I was just talking about. That was an interesting exhibition because in like gathering all these things, I've tried to find like a through line of connection between various projects over the years, and this interest in repurposing and this interest in different mediums being able to communicate different things to different audiences was, kind of like a through line there. So I'll do like a quick screen share, but the link is in the chat, of course. So I'm gonna try to go through super quickly everything that I see. This is a video game console here called Anbernic. I was interested in it because it was repurposed by Soulja Boy. He basically drop shipped it and called it Soulja Game. In my version, there's some other modifications, but you cannot see them here. Anyway, it has hundreds and hundreds of video games from various different consoles over many decades. So there's arcade games, Genesis, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Game Gear, PlayStation 2. There's I don't know. Game Boy. There's a bunch of stuff on here. Atari, and this I have it projected with this little bench here, and it's first come first serve basically, and you can play as long as you want, and the sounds are playing throughout the space as well. This is obviously a pre-COVID exhibition. But yes, so that's that. I have these various different small objects, which are silicone, and they're kind of a grouping of like weeds and flowers that are plucked from, hotels and office spaces and bits of trash. Kind of thinking about the Wunderkammer and the like origins of, and the kind of like colonial origins of, museums. I'll show like a zoomed in version of that. Okay, yeah, some of them are here. So they're all like repurposed from, toy wrappings or little pill jars or peanut butter jars. And yeah, this is like a straw container, straw holder. So yeah, and this is silicone, not resin. Okay, what else we got? There are some paintings which are done on aluminum flashing, which is a material that's used for like weatherproofing. And these are paintings of new housing developments in Third Ward, Houston. This is a piece called Bam Bam Exclusive Drip, which is a modified anti-suicide smock. It's based off of garments that you'll find in prisons throughout the US, but made into a kind of like non-binary streetwear garment. And on the outside are these different graphics from various manga and anime that deal with the prison industrial complex. So there's Puri Puri Prisoner, there's Rikio, and there's some other examples as well. Characters from Baki as well. There's some video works here. This is a piece called Do You Even Talk to Your Neighbors, which is a kind of a it's like kind of a mashup of a grill that you might find like commonly in Brooklyn, which are often used in a kind of communal way. Like there might be one or two people on the block that have a grill, but if there's a block party, everyone will just bring things and to grill. And so it's a combo of that and a Faraday cage, which is kind of more the purview of like the doomsday prepper. So kind of like taking two objects from different cultures and geographies and like smashing them together in a way. Also, I guess as a comment on gentrification too. I have various video works here. This is a collaborative with folk musician Drag Lomax. I have some paintings which are drawn from archival images from DJ Screw Archive in Houston. These are some more paintings that are on aluminum flashing. In the corner here, there is a Bitcoin miner. This Bitcoin miner was not functional in the space, but it has been in the past in various other iterations at our institutions. And the cryptocurrency it would mine would then be transferred into US dollars and then transferred to a bail fund, in this case, the Bronx Freedom Fund. But in being here, it's kind of like a dumb advertisement for an application that I worked with the people that developed it called Bail Block, which you can still download. It's an application that uses spare processing power to mine Monero, which is a different cryptocurrency. And in the process of this exhibition, I had Bail Block installed on the different computers in basically the curatorial staff computers. And we also worked with the IT department of MoMA and got like a network of computers to be running it 24 hours a day. So that was like a separate thing. But for me, it was important to like have this physical object as a way to point to a software that you can download. And Yeah. I have these signs. There's several pieces in the show that are not listed in the catalog. This is one of them. This is a variety of kind of predatory housing signs that I collected from Houston, and I kind of put them up way at the top of the ceiling, so that you would not see them otherwise unless you were looking up there. I'm skipping over some stuff, of course, but this is a painting that is made to look like a dusty mirror that says, "I'm sorry, I don't have you saved. Who is this?" So this is kind of like an older work. I have a stack of cassette tapes here, which are, they're made to be screwless. So these are tapes that you can send to incarcerated persons, because that's the only physical media that they're allowed to use for listening to music. Ostensibly because they're like, oh, you could break a CD and use it to make a weapon or something. So there's a particular relationship between, I don't know, being resistant to like repurposing and the anti-Blackness of the prison industrial complex that I return to. There's also a bent Metro card. Some years back, it was discovered that you could use a 2-day Metro card, and if you bend it in a certain way, it becomes an unlimited. And there was a young man who made a song called the Metro Card Song, and he released it on YouTube, which basically chronicles how to do this. And then afterwards, it became, like a misdemeanor to possess a bent Metro card because it's considered criminal paraphernalia. So I'm interested in the ways that these like innocuous objects can be like transformed by like the powers that be, but it's also just a way of criminalizing teenagers. It's like, why? Like, some various photographs, some music videos. This is a video which is a kind of compilation of some archival stuff from a thing called TV Pix or TV Pow from the 70s and early 80s, which was a kind of interactive game on TV where you would like say a certain sound and the 8-bit graphic would, it would shoot its laser or swing the baseball bat or roll the bowling ball or whatever. And the notion was that your sound was activating this, your sound was controlling it. But in reality, there was a person behind the scenes in the studio that was like playing the joystick. So I was interested in that because there's a way that there's a desire for interactivity in media before there was the means for it to exist. So I feel like that's almost like a proto-internet kind of thing. There was this bookshelf, which had a variety of books on it. Every day, this gallery in the museum was closed for 30 minutes, and it was only open to security staff. And during that time, they could, look at any of the artwork, listen to the videos, play the games, or read these books. Otherwise, these books are not accessible to the public. It's just like a sculpture, except for this short period of the day when like people, security staff can like interact with them. On top of it is a small sculpture, which is from a police uniform hat. It's called Journey into Mystery, What If Number 12. And police uniform hats, they have a little slot that you would like slide a photograph of your loved one into it. The photograph that I put in is actually an abstract photograph, which was taken from Diamond Reynolds' live stream of her partner, Philando Castile, being murdered by the police. So this was an instance where the camera's like pointed to the sky. And so it's like a blue sky with like some like telephone lines and, telephone pole. So it's an abstract kind of image. It's not I was interested in like different ways of picturing these issues without it being like trauma porn and like recycling these very gory and violent images of Black suffering, of which there is an industry around that as well. And also this kind of was the idea of like, oh, what if there was some kind of penance or some kind of remembrance that the police departments themselves did? Like, what if this was a thing that was like implemented, like, you know, for a year, every officer has to have this like photograph as a way of like, you know, thinking about the wrongdoing of other officers, you know, as rather than the kind of egregious you know, ignoring of the problem that seems to be happening now, you know. Yeah, see more of those. Well, here's a zoomed in version. Oh yeah, here's the front side of the garment I was referring to earlier. Backside. This is a kind of closer shot of the grill, which this grill was fabricated by Alabama Joe, who is a really well-known grill fabricator, originally from Alabama. But he's been in Brooklyn for, I don't know, probably 30 years or something like that. And yeah, I like asked him to like produce this particular kind of grill, and then because he has if you go to his like website, which I think is drumgrills.com, you can like order different kinds. But I asked to order a specific kind, and then I modified it into a Faraday cage by adding, you know, this different like aluminum tape and different things. And inside of it, there's old hard drives and cell phones and documents, a variety of different things there. Okay, yeah, I think that I'm happy to take any questions. I went super fast so I could cover a lot of stuff. And oh yeah, check out this link tree if you're interested in any of the music projects or the art projects that I've been working on. And there's some more things coming soon. And yeah, thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Devin. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, they could drop in the chat or just ask right away. I wouldn't say question. I'm just like inspired by your practice because it's so fluid, and I feel like mine is pretty like clunky compared to like and I feel like maybe a lot of artists, not a lot of artists, but there are artists whose practices are more studio based. And another thing I'm thinking about is there's a lot of your work has relations to freedom or types of liberation. I'm wondering if you can speak a little more about that. Like, for example, you know, like you could be in a neighborhood or be in a life situation where you're not so free, but then gentrification happens, you're even less free. You know,
Sure,
like,
sure.
And obviously there are other modes in which freedom is limited, like MetroCard, for example. At some point, you discover that there's a certain amount of freedom in doing this trick, and then that's once again clamped down.
Yeah, I think there's freedom is it's so funny. Yeah, freedom is a big thing in America, right? It's like we're we're allegedly the land of the free, right? I think that many instances where there are restrictions and limitations, you know, placed upon people based on systemic issues, you know, ableism, racism, sexism, homophobia, you know, various different you know, manifestations are, on the one hand, they're curtailments to this concept of like freedom, but in other ways freedom exists like it exists even in I don't know, even in captivity or even in restriction, because they're basically, you're like try to figure out ways around things, or you figure out ways through particular kinds of hardship, and like no one can take away that conceptual process, although they can limit the like material ways in which you can execute those ideas. So I guess that is a particular kind of iteration of freedom that I'm interested in exploring through my art. And I think that connects to, as a teen, like graffiti and skateboarding on property that does not belong to you is it's a very minor, it's one ways of getting to that. But of course, direct action, grassroots political organization, those are other means as well. Freeware in software, is like also a thing that's from my childhood, that was a much bigger part of the conversation in the past than in the present, and I'm trying to like get back to that a little bit with the Tohu Abohu software. So yeah, I guess that there's a lot of different angles on that particular issue, but
I just also saw that there are like things that resonate with me, which are like modes of liberation and how abstraction can contribute to that. Like, and that also reminds me a little bit of Takwase Dyson's work. I don't know if you know her work, but she
so good.
Yeah, so it's like
so good. Like,
just like you will have to abstract to see something that and a different use in order to liberate yourself or find a liberatory way around it. So like it's a abstraction. It's an instinct in that sense.
I mean, it's also a wild thing when you're talking about systemic issues, when you're talking about systems, that is an abstract thing, but it's an abstract thing that has material consequences. So it's trying to, I don't know, give information in a compelling way. It's trying to picture something that's abstract, but has like very physical and temporal results, I guess. Yeah. I think there's lots of ways of doing that. One way is you could like, have a very representational means, and another way is having a more informational or like abstract means, and another way is trying to, I don't know, express the feeling, the affective space that these particular situations produce. And that's not a thing that there isn't like a color or like a picture or like a texture that's like, oh, sadness, or you know what I mean? So it's like it's a struggle to like try to convey those kinds of things, and sometimes abstraction is a technique that one can use towards that. Yeah.
And I see that Bonnie asked, what was the scrolling window on the piece you made in August 20?
Oh yeah, that little scrolling I'm so glad somebody asked. Yeah, that little scrolling window in the corner is it's from genius.com, and they are instances of the phrase "to maintain" as they appear in songs, mostly rap songs. So there's like dozens and dozens of examples of this phrase "to maintain" that are used. I chose the ones that I remember from my childhood, so that's like mostly 90s rap songs, but there are many more that I didn't use, and many more that came after that as well. And I think with that piece in general, I was thinking about the notion of, oftentimes that the phrase "to maintain" would refer to like, oh, I'm going to like have a drink, or I'm going to smoke weed or something like that. Some way of trying to cope with the, constant surveillance by police and constant, possible peril or like death, in particular urban environments, et cetera, and certain kinds of self-care or self-maintenance being criminalized. And then, I mean, now obviously, like these things are all shifting. But as for instance, cannabis is being legalized, but simultaneously, all of those people who like were languishing in prison as a result of like selling cannabis, their records aren't being expunged. They still will be existing in a way that is limited in a very unfair manner. So yeah, I think there's a lot of like work to be done, but I'm hoping that in the pieces that I make, it's like sparking kind of conversations around these topics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for your question.
Okay. Well, we're getting to the top of the hour, and thank you so much. I'm just like, oh, so much to absorb, and so much
Awesome.
fluidity in your practice. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. For people that don't know,
Mhm.
yeah, we have known each other for quite a while. I'm
Yeah.
always an admirer of your practice.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I'm really
Yeah.
glad to be able to be a part of this,
Mhm.
community and yeah, share some work and just be in discourse and dialogue with the next generation
The next generation
of thinkers, doers, makers, all that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to see what's next, Devin. It looks great. Thank you, Devin, and thank you, everyone. Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Be well.
Be well.